This is a special event that we're really pleased is happening tonight. And it is not an event that's open to the public, whether or not you may know. This is truly our closest donors, friends, and alumni. I want to thank you for supporting us. We were selective in our invitation. We wanted to send it out to those of you that have been particularly supportive of all we do here at TFT, especially during this extremely challenging year. I do want you to know our students are getting by. They are making the best of this situation, and I'm proud of the work we're doing. Our faculty has been reimagining their classes, thinking about how things look in this world of current remote and online education, and really succeeding, focusing on what they have to do, how they want to deliver that material. And my favorite thing is perhaps dropping by a tap class where I get to see a whole room full of 20 squares with feet only in them, just feet, and then one teacher leading them all along, some in their kitchen, some in their bedrooms, all over the place. We have an exciting year ahead, and it's made possible because of your generosity. Thank you. I'd like to welcome you to this special evening of conversation about an MFA filmmaker, one of our students who was working on his thesis film, the feature film, The Delivery Game. This past summer, they were able to shoot this under the Safer at Home mandate, and it was not easy to get him there. I'll let him share the full story with you of how this was done, but I do want you to know it was a Herculean effort of faculty, students, safety committee, staff, and everything that was put together by this student, and I'm proud of him. Owen Campbell is the star filmmaker of our conversation tonight, but I think you'll also be incredibly impressed by the people he worked with, and our faculty member who's also on the panel tonight. They were all involved in the making of this film. This was truly generated by Owen's desire and never stopping effort to make sure that it happened. He did not want to let art stop in this time where we need art more than ever before. We need to connect. So we'll be hosting a Q&A right after the conversation happens, and I encourage you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. You can do that by pushing the Q&A button that you'll see down below, or if you're on your mobile device in a slightly different place, but use the Q&A button to submit your questions as they come into your mind. Then our speakers will try to address them during the Q&A section. I'm going to introduce our speakers now for this evening, and you'll get to see them as they turn on their camera. Wave hello. One at a time. First off is, I guess we should say, please welcome to the stage, MFA filmmaker Owen Campbell from the class of 2021. Owen, thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Brian.
Please welcome Fabian Vogmister. Fabian is a longtime professor here in the School of Theater, Film, and Television, and the driving force that kept these productions happening as we moved along. Fabian was instrumental and the chair of our safety committee in working through all the very, very complex guidance from the LA County Department of Health, from UCLA, from the government at the state level, federal level, putting that all together into figuring out what would be safe, or at least mitigate as much risk as possible for our students. So thanks for being here, Fabian.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everybody.
Also, please welcome our moderator, Janelle Riley from Variety. I'm so glad that Janelle is here because she is a professional moderator, right? She does this for Variety, but she's also a screenwriter, an actor, a creator, a producer, and just the perfect person to host this for us tonight. Janelle, thank you for joining us and adding a little bit of legitimacy to the proceedings.
Thank you so much.
You know, our third speaker, Cora Lautzi, was the on-set safety producer for The Delivery Game and was unable to join us tonight, but we were able to interview her prior. I'll leave it to Janelle to play the clips for you when she's ready. And with that, everyone, thank you again for being here. It's going to be a great evening. Stay in touch with us, ask questions, and reach out whenever you want to know what's going on with your alma mater or with UCLA if you didn't join us here as a student for some reason. We're glad you're here. I'll let Janelle take it away. Thank you all again. Enjoy the evening.
Oh, thank you so much for that warm welcome, Interim Dean Kite. And thank you all for joining us tonight for an in-depth conversation about the production of The Delivery Game, a feature film by UCLA TFT filmmaker Owen Campbell. Once again, I'm Janelle Riley. I'm from Variety and your moderator for today's exciting conversation. I'd actually like to start with the movie poster and talking a little bit about the movie with Owen. I am so impressed, first of all, that anyone can get a movie made, but then particularly in these circumstances, I can't wait to hear about it. But just so we have some background, Owen, can you tell us sort of what the delivery game is about?
Yeah, thank you, Janelle. So on the level of story, it's about a couple who goes on vacation, an upper middle class couple, and they go on a vacation in an effort to work out some things in their relationship, why they're unhappy. And in that time, they meet a lost hiker who in a way makes them question who they are, and ultimately everybody dies. But I think on a different level, it deals with the things that are making them unhappy, of the choices they've made in how to live their lives, and who they thought they were and what they derive meaning from.
Did you really just spoil the ending of your own movie, or were you joking?
Well, I didn't, because they die halfway through and then something surprising happens.
Well, okay, you're good at this. You have hooked me.
I'm very bad at this, actually.
No, that is an elevator pitch. They say sum it up in 20 seconds or less, and you got me with that. I can't wait to see this.
Thank you.
Obviously, our lives were all changed in March when the shutdown happened. What led to your decision to move forward with the production of the film?
Well, I had a project that I had written, contacted a production designer, really gotten the wheels in motion to produce, that of course didn't end up happening, right? So we were back to square one, and I knew I couldn't do that idea because I had to build a set at UCLA. And I had some conversations early on into the lockdown with Fabian, of course, and also some other faculty members, say Nancy Richardson, about what other people are doing, what say people in the industry are doing, or what is considered a safe environment. And of course, just doing some cursory background into COVID-19, and really just kind of settled on, well, if you can do the utmost to eliminate the chance that anyone entering a secure environment will be a carrier of COVID-19, you could do something safely. And all that means is that I had some practical limitations that became creative limitations about what can I make under these conditions, or really more specifically in this physical space.
Actually, why don't we have Fabian join us while we go to this next image to continue the discussion. Hey, there he is. Can you both sort of walk me through this process, how it came about in March, just as the pandemic crisis began shutting down all of California? Fabian, what was your role as the chair of the Production Safety Committee in working with Owen?
Yeah, well, when the pandemic hit us all, as with everybody else, we were shocked by the situation. We didn't understand what was ahead of us. What we knew is that we had a group of students that were in the middle of production or close to production that were hit in a very negative way in terms of their advancement with their degree. And the whole situation created a great level of uncertainty. So the first thing that happened was our dean, Dean Kite, gathered a group of faculty across our whole school and created a task force to consider how we're going to move forward with our mission, both in terms of our educational mission and our research mission. And it took the most of a couple of months for that group to do research and to come up with a set of principles for how to continue, how to move forward. Out of which ultimately, now while we were discussing this at the departmental level, our chair, Steve Anderson, also went ahead and created a production safety committee, which I was asked to chair. And in the middle of the creation of that committee, Owen reached out to me and say, "Hey, Fabian, I have an idea." And it's a very crazy idea, which is to make a feature in the middle of the pandemic. And the process, so what happened was, important thing to understand here is that Owen's development process and our adaptation to the pandemic went in parallel, in a way that our work and our research helped Owen think about the environment, but Owen's research and his creative thinking really shaped what became possible for us. And so it was a really interesting back and forth dialogue between Owen's development process and our coming up with a set of protocols for all of our students, of which Owen was really the pioneer. And so we're all very thankful to him for that.
I mean, Owen, was there ever a time when you just thought it just wasn't going to happen this year? You were just going to have to wait?
Certainly. Certainly. But I really didn't have another option. I knew that in some respects, in laying the groundwork, I had to make some gambles before I was absolutely certain we'd be able to go ahead with it, such as some property rentals, which was a big one. And there were times I was very nervous, but the communication was very good. And to Fabian's credit, I think one day I was like, he told me, "Look, if I didn't think that you had a chance, I wouldn't just keep stringing you along here." And so that was reassuring.
Yeah, that's an important part of the process. Actually, I had a few calls from Owen going, should I keep going with this? Basically, he was freaking out. And also you got to understand here, our process went in parallel with UCLA's process, with the county process, with the national process. So we were all adapting to the situation together. And what was important for me in the dialogue with Owen was to try to, if there was going to be a red flag, a definite no at any point, I wanted to come as early as possible. And what was very helpful to us is that UCLA, the Vice Chancellor of Research, came up with a series of protocols for faculty doing research. How could we go back to doing research? And actually, that's much of what Owen's process was modeled after. What the faculty were required by the university in terms of us doing research. And again, the dean was very helpful in maintaining that dialogue open with the campus level administration to see what was going to be possible or not.
And I think we have another set of images that sort of show you actually at work on set, if we want to take a look at those. For both of you, of the safety plan that was developed, what was created completely new for production to proceed? Because especially when you guys were going, you know, we didn't know about things like safety bubbles or pods, things like that.
I'll start and then I'll let Owen expand. I think there's three concepts that evolved for us that were very important in making this possible. First was this idea of how do you create a safety bubble? And it's interesting. I think we were some of the first talking about that idea in the context of student work. How do you create a safe environment? I mean, what's important is to reduce the possibility of transmission of the virus was the number one priority. And in the context of that, we decided to create a new position on the set, which we call the safety producer. And we thought about it a lot, and we didn't call it a safety coordinator or a safety supervisor. We call it a safety producer because we understand what the word producer means in filmmaking. And we wanted somebody with power that was actually above the director's power. And so there's this position that was very important, and there was a lot of dialogue about how we make a safety producer hired by a student filmmakers be credible. Maybe Owen wants to talk a little bit about that position and how that worked for him.
Yeah, so that was Cora, and as Fabian said, she was more or less, she was the boss. You know, it was in her power to say, pull the ripcord and say, shut it down. And under those circumstances where she would do that is say, if the bubble was compromised, or if in her symptom monitoring and temperature checks, she found something that would alarm her. And, you know, obviously I'd never been on a set with a COVID-19 safety manager before. And so it was different. Yeah.
Can you tell me also about the whistleblower protocol? This is the first time I've ever heard of this.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of our first feedbacks to Owen. You all need to understand that Owen's initial proposal, I don't remember, but was something like 20 pages long. I mean, really had a lot of research. Very quickly was the need for anybody in his crew and cast to be able to report anonymously any concerns they may have. In terms specifically of COVID-19 risks. And so we asked him to develop a whistleblower protocol, which we have now implemented for all our productions. And it's a very important part of making all students in our community feel safe and not feel pressure to participate in something that they don't consider safe.
Wow, Owen, so you came up with that? Or developed
No,
it?
that wasn't my idea.
Okay.
That came up in the back and forth collaboration with the safety committee, I believe. Yeah. So I don't know whose idea it was. It was a good idea though, and thankfully we didn't have to use it.
Well, you both mentioned before that the on-set safety producer was a position that was totally newly created. Actually, prior to tonight, I was able to interview Cora Lotzi, who served in that position, and we talked about what prepared her for taking on the role of on-set safety producer. Why don't we take a look at that clip?
This is a good question because I haven't done anything like this before.
I'm sorry.
I've been on film sets. So I'm an artist primarily. I do my own work as an artist, and I've been on film sets, but in that role, doing you know, set building or production design type work. And so this was definitely my first time doing something like this on a film set. I think the reason why I felt prepared, and I think why Owen approached me to do this, is that the few months leading up to production, I guess, you know, since the beginning of the pandemic, or since May really, I've been working with these McDonald's workers in Oakland who had been striking due to unsafe working conditions. At the beginning of the pandemic, the manager gave them dog diapers and coffee filters to use as PPE, and they went on strike. And so alongside SEIU Fight for 15 and a community coalition of partners, we together have been working to support these workers and like help support them in their direct demonstrations and protests that they were doing. And so this was something that throughout many months we were kind of figuring out how to do this safely, how to be outside with a lot of people during COVID who had been exposed. At the beginning, you know, they went on strike because 11 of the workers had gotten COVID, which then spread to their family members. And so the beginning, we were kind of tiptoeing around doing this and had to cancel some events and had to kind of creatively find solutions to be able to do this. So kind of unofficially, me alongside some other people have been working as, you know, COVID safety producers in this role in an environment that felt incredibly important to be in with people outside, and also figure out how to do safely and, you know, mitigate the spread of this virus that is, you know, a health justice issue. And I think recognizing that it's more than a health issue, it's a health justice issue. So, you know, the importance of coming together safely and being together, I think, is why Owen approached me to do this. Is that, you know, I had been doing similar work, not on a film set, but in direct action work here in Oakland.
And we're back. Owen, it sounds like you made a great choice to bring Cora on. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you created this safety bubble, and more importantly, how you maintain that during production? Did everyone have to quarantine as part of the plan? Did you yourself have to?
Yeah, of course. You know, I'm going and I have a body like everyone else. I mean, it's basically, and I give a lot of credit to everyone who came up for making a, you know, really big sacrifice of the 2 weeks before we go up to really stay in your apartment, you know, as much as humanly possible. You know, you have to go out to do some things, like get some food or go on a run while staying far away from other people. And then in that 2 week period of time, in that last week, everyone underwent two COVID tests, the molecular PCR tests, and sent their negative results to Cora. And, you know, she created a log of that. And Cora had been in touch with everyone through this time if they had questions about this and that, to kind of build a trusting relationship. And, you know, Cora could verify that, and the tests say, you know, before we go up there, that as far as we can determine, no one here has COVID, and to a very large degree. And then honestly, once we're up there, is pretty easy. There's not much else around. Not much temptation to like jump in the car and go to Pizza Hut when you're up in Three Rivers, California. And we're also close, you know, if you left, people would notice. So yeah.
I actually asked Cora the same question I asked you. Why don't we take a look at what she had to say?
So primarily, so we were in, I guess Owen will talk about this, but we were in like a COVID safe bubble. So first and foremost, it's maintaining that bubble, which on this set was actually fairly straightforward, because we were all, it was only 10 of us. It was a very small crew, and we were all sleeping in the same place that we were filming. So it wasn't, you know, nobody was leaving set to go to a hotel and then returning. And it wasn't like, okay, here's my word, I'm not going to go out and to the restaurant at night. We were all in visual contact basically with each other the entire time. So that part, you know, luckily was fairly easy. The other thing, just making sure people feel safe and being in contact with everybody. And then like the more nitty gritty, I was taking everybody's temperature every morning and every night and doing a symptom check. So, you know, we had a list of all the major COVID symptoms, and everybody twice a day, we would, you know, I would meet with them one-on-one and take their temperature and do that. And also I was recording all of our daily activities and doing a contact tracing log. So nobody was coming in and out per se, but we did have people dropping off food. So just kind of marking who that person was, their contact, and keeping a log of all of that information, which was all accessible to an offsite safety producer who had access to all of that. So somebody outside the bubble was also kind of keeping an eye on everything that was going on.
This all sounds really complicated, but at the same time, I'm jealous of you all, because you could actually hug each other and interact with each other. Actually, the very last question I asked Cora was about some of the challenges that she encountered during this. Why don't we take a look at that last clip?
So we did, I think, have two kind of major unforeseen challenges. The first is something that maybe I naively was hoping wouldn't be a challenge at all. Like being on set before, there's so much last minute, like needs, changes, script changes, we need a new prop. Like, and I was kind of thinking that because we were in this bubble, everything was going to be perfectly planned and resolved, which of course there were last minute needs and some unforeseen things that came up. And luckily, I think incredibly luckily, the person who we had delivering food every day was willing and available to basically be our off bubble local producer. And so there were times when we needed her to drive, like she drove to Visalia to pick up a fog machine for us. And she was willing to do that. So we were able to get things that we hadn't brought delivered to set. We also, I think there was a combination of being remote, like a little bit remote out in Three Rivers, and also at the time USPS was getting very, very defunded, and like there was this whole rigmarole with USPS, so we couldn't, like, we were ordering things online and they were showing up 10 days later. So that wasn't an option. And so I think, you know, looking forward, yet you have the bubble, and having somebody that's outside of the bubble that can be doing things in stores and driving around and delivering things to set is a very crucial part of maintaining the bubble.
Hearing Cora talk about the filming location just now, I know we have some new images that were taken on set. And I really want to know about the challenges of finding a suitable filming location during a shutdown. And how long were you there for, considering, you know, the quarantining, the shooting, and then when were you finally able to go home?
Right. So we were there for about 19 days because the say quarantine or pre-shoot isolation is before we go up. But that is a 2-week chunk of time where people were more or less dedicated to the project. And then, so we were there for about 19 days. And it's actually wasn't so much a challenge to find a place that could write the script that I wrote, because what I did was I looked for a place and then I wrote a script that I could shoot there, you know? So it was kind of easier logistically that way.
So you had your location first before you wrote your script?
Yeah, and that's the way the whole project sort of unfolded. I say I had my actors before I had my script. I have Vanessa Troncoso, who I'd had the chance to work with, not as a director before, who I knew someone that I think, well, this is a really great actor, and I think I could get her, so I'll write a part for her. And my Jonathan in the movie is my friend Jonathan, who I've known for like 12 years or something. And then in one of those photos, you'll see there's a photo of myself in front of the camera, and I was like, well, I think I do need a third character, and I guess I'll be there anyway. So I'll be.
You acted in it as well.
Yeah, that was difficult.
And you probably did craft services and PA work and
Matt Johnson, the producer and AD, did all of that. We worked Matt to the bone.
I'm imagining, you know, it's great to work with actors that you know, because it's great if they're wonderful actors, but also if they're good people in a situation like this.
Yeah, well, that's a huge thing too in considering both the cast and the crew of, you know, say once we get past, okay, hopefully we've all got in here and we don't have COVID. We're all spending 19 days together in this little place, right? So, you know, I'm very lucky. Everyone got along. Everyone had a really good time, and we got along. And I'm so lucky because I was really worried about cabin fever. People start to hate each other. You know, just like it's serious because we worked hard and we did a lot of work. And you know, I was directing the film. I wanted to get it how I wanted it. You know, which is not always easy on a cast and a crew. But I mean, I got so lucky with everyone that came. You know, I was very sad to leave. Yeah.
I'm almost thinking you could make your next movie about the making of this movie. I bet that would be a really good story.
Well, that's come up, but you know, a good story needs conflict, and I'm not fooling around here. When it was fun. Everyone, you know, just wanted to kind of see somebody else.
Yeah, I think at the point that you were shooting, probably they were grateful. And honestly, you talk about worrying about cabin fever. I mean, we have cabin fever in our homes, for that matter. So I'm starting to feel a little jealous, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we have Fabian join us again for these last couple questions. I just want to remind anyone, if you have a question, type it into the Q&A box and we'll get through those sort of in the next batch of questions. Welcome back, Fabian. What sticks out in my mind the most is the breadth of the planning that was involved in creating all the safety measures that you needed just to make this film. And then, they say necessity is the mother of all invention. I'm curious how or if will these new ways of thinking be adopted at TFT or UCLA going forward?
Yeah, I think first I just wanted to make a quick comment about how intelligent Owen was in going from his original short film proposal to actually making a feature. So COVID actually did not limit him. It created a platform and an environment in which he understood that the human resource investment that it was going to take to make the film made it worth it to go to up the ante and go larger scale. And that's very, very important, because once you're able to create the bubble, you might as well take full advantage of that bubble, right? And so I think that's a lesson for everybody. Not that everybody needs to make a feature, but how do you take best advantage of your assets and resources during a crisis? This is not going to be our last crisis. So I think it's a great lesson for all of our students, how to handle the situation and be creative. Let me say, in terms of the creation of our guidelines and protocols, the main thing what we did is we decided we needed to create a very stringent set of protocols for our students. But that's just the baseline, because part of the problem with creating rules for creative people is that you can't possibly contain all of the creative ideas that they could come up with on how to solve the problem. So you can think of a baseline set of rules and then create a flexible process that allows for new ideas and new solutions to emerge. So I think, for example, the key to Owen's film was dialogue. And that's what we've been inviting all of our students to. As soon as they have an idea, as soon as they have an inspiration, initiate a dialogue with the safety committee. Do not limit yourself just by the set of written rules, but open up the ideas to us, because we may discover together that there's more possibilities than the ones determined by county limitations. So that's the key here, is that you want to have clear set of rules, but then you also want to have a very creative and flexible process that enables new ideas to emerge.
Owen, you want to add anything?
No, I'm actually happy Fabian said the thing about why I wanted to do a feature, because I hadn't mentioned that, because you're kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. And I'd also like to say, I'm in a editing class right now, and I've seen some of the other projects that my classmates have been doing, and working around these limitations. And I think they're all very interesting. And I think this is something Fabian said to us before, is about starting with what you have, and in a way what and that will really allow you to get the most out of it. And oftentimes what you have, it's right there, it's free. You don't have to pay for it, and it intimately, and you bring something new to it. And I think that's just in general a great way to start making, say, a student or a low budget film.
So
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you please.
No, I just wanted to say, I think students and anybody trying to engage in creative activity needs to remember that some of the most important films ever made were under incredible, difficult crises, whether it's dictatorships in Latin America or hunger in Africa, or many, many different situations. So that I think it's largely about what Owen is talking about. You need to make best use of your assets and resources. Take stock of what's available to you, and then create from that platform. And I think we can, we've already approved 8 films during the pandemic. We haven't had any incidents yet. Everything is moving great. So our students are doing really fantastic.
Do you foresee this curriculum staying in place with a safety supervisor, a safety producer, the whistleblower? Do you see continuing that even when the pandemic is over?
Absolutely. I do think we have learned, both the faculty, the administration, and the students, we're learning some very important lessons. Things that we didn't think were possible are now possible. And so, for example, the idea of how you create a communication system of transparency among students and faculty, I think this has opened up a new level of collaboration in our department, in which we understand that we're in it together, we're learning together, and I think that's going to have a long-term impact on how we do things.
And Owen, just to be clear, were you originally going to make a short film? At what point did it become a feature?
Well, so this project bears no relation, really, no definite relation to the previous one. There may be, if you bring out your magnifying glass, like some thematic parallels, but not the same story, not the same cast, you know, none of that stuff. It was really, I started from scratch, and it was actually very helpful. I've talked to some of my classmates about, and some people that came up were like, oh, well, you know, I think I'd like to do something with the bubble. I'd like to adapt my thing. And the conversation has gone, at least from my end, is like, you're much better starting from scratch than trying to adapt, you know, a story that goes all around the country into one that you can shoot in one location. Yeah.
For my final question, I wanted to ask Owen, do you think this experience significantly stretched the creative process for you? I mean, through your journey of researching and establishing these new protocols, are you going to be approaching filmmaking any differently going forward?
Well, yeah, certainly. I think, you know, I've never spent 3 weeks just filmmaking before. So I obviously learned a great deal. I mean, hopefully, you know, the next time I make a film, it will not be under these conditions, but you know, it's always good to really learn how to do more with less if you can. You know, save your resources, double, you know, figure out how to use things twice. I learned a ton, and I'm very happy and thankful that I got to do it. Yeah.
Are there any examples that leap to mind where there was something you wanted to do, but because, you know, something kept you from doing it and you actually came up with something better?
Let me think. Well, I know my cinematographer Ingrid really wanted to shoot this dam that was down the street, and however, I had this conversation with her a lot of times, and the last time I was like, Ingrid, there's literally no way in the world that we're gonna get a shot of that dam that's down the street, so you can please stop bringing it up. I think it really forced me to go deeper into character, really. The fact that, you know, in a lot of movies you can say, oh, now it's interesting because they're in a new place, so this is happening. It really forced me, and I think I needed this to say, oh no, now it's interesting because we're learning more about the character. Now the character's changing. Now, say if we have 4 scenes to shoot in the same room, well, how do you shoot a scene 4 different ways? And each one is the appropriate way for what's going on right now. It certainly forced me to maybe make a different kind of movie, certainly than the one I did last year. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Thank you both. We actually have some time now to answer some of these questions that our audience have been sending through the Q&A button. And audience, feel free to send some more if you want. I think we have some time here. We have a question from Meredith. I think the most important question: when and how will we be able to see this movie?
I don't know. I have to finish it, and then you know, festivals are kind of in a weird place right now where they are indistinguishable from, more or less, from Vimeo link. And so who knows, you know, typically, now this is like another thing about the distribution process for low budget films is it's tough, and it's not guaranteed. So I don't know, I was thinking about, first I have to finish it, which should happen in the spring, and then I need to look into it, Meredith.
Well, hopefully you can come back here in like a year and screen it and have a Q&A. An anonymous attendee has a question. Oh yes, Owen, can you elaborate a little more about what a normal day of filming was like, since it wasn't your normal day or period of filming?
Yeah,
So to
yeah.
speak?
So, well, actually, a couple of things that haven't been mentioned right now are like the heat and the air quality of when we were up there. So the day we drove up there, Death Valley, I believe, recorded the hottest temperature ever. And it was for our first week there, 110 or 107 degrees every single day. So we created the schedule, what we called siesta hours, where we'd get up around 5, start working around 6, work till 11, 3-4 hour break around the middle of the day when it was very hot and the sunlight wasn't very good. And we'd have a meal then, and typically people would take a nap, and I would get to check in with Matt, the AD and producer, and Ingrid, and we'd get a good chance to go again. And then, we'd come back, shoot the second half of the day, and have dinner afterwards, and people would fall asleep pretty shortly thereafter. Yeah.
Was there a set time for like temperature checks or things like that, or?
Cora did those things. I honestly, whenever Cora would come by, I had my head in something else, and Cora would come by with the contactless thermometer gun, and I'd be like, okay. But there, there was one in the morning, typically around meal times, I guess, because people weren't working. Breakfast, and
let me add something to that, which we haven't mentioned, which as part of the safety monitoring structure, we also created a staff position in the department, which is the remote safety coordinator. So actually, Cora worked for in this case was Ran Suarez. And so that was it's a very important dialectic between the on-location safety producer and the departmental safety coordinator. So all of the monitoring had to be reported daily to us so that we knew how things were going.
Mm. And we have a creative question from Michael. Wants to know what motivated you to write this story.
I don't know. I might have to see an analyst about that one.
Filmmaking is therapy, isn't it?
Maybe. Hopefully that's a good excuse for me to not see a therapist. I don't know. It was, nothing is random, but I do think that, I was like, okay, this is the chance, say, to make a feature film. People are available. I found a beautiful location. What could happen? And like I said, I do think if you look closely, there are thematics to my the unproduced short film that I was going to make. And so I think there were issues about why and how are we living our lives like we are, which is pretty vague, but that's the truth. Yeah.
And another question about the process. How long did it take you to actually write the film once you had your location picked?
I can't remember. I did get up to scout it once with Ingrid, find out the exact physical layout of the house, think about, what's the dramatic potential there. I'd say I wrote it in maybe two months, and that's an ongoing process, because we get up there. We're very lucky. Our DIT was also an editor. He could put together some rough cuts. We could see how we were doing. And in that process, I realized that I did have to change some things and take a look and be like, well, maybe that should happen a different way, which will also necessitate changing like 4 or 5 other scenes. So the writing process is continuous, and it continues into the editing process. Yeah.
How big was your casting crew? I realized I hadn't asked.
10 people, including me. Yeah.
Did actors sort of work as crew as well? I've seen that happen before.
No, not this time around, but we did have, like, Adam Lee, our first AC, was basically also the gaffer. Cooper Rogers, the art director, took care of a lot of not COVID safety things, but like physical safety things, like is this light going to kill someone type safety things. You know, Matt was producer AD, I was directing and acting. We didn't have a script supervisor, but you know, that makes things fun.
Was there anybody who needed convincing, or was everybody pretty gung-ho to do this?
Everyone was down, you know. I think if, and you know, like we had this whistleblower protocol in place for if people felt uncomfortable, but it's really such an crazy thing to ask that, you know, if you were not also, if you were 50-50, you know, you would say no. But if you were 100, you would say, all right, let's do it, you know. Yeah.
Fabian, we have a question for you. Someone wants to know, how did you come up with the creation of all the different safety processes?
Yeah, well, it was, you know, first of all, since some of them may also be in this with us today, I really want to thank everybody in the Film, Television, and Digital Media Production Safety Committee, which is interesting, a committee made of faculty, staff, and students. So it actually includes all elements of our community. And that committee worked for about, I would say, month to almost month and a half to develop the basic set of guidelines and protocols. And we produced a document, and this happened along Owen's development of his ideas for how to make this. So as I said in the beginning, it was a parallel process, Owen's development and our development of ideas. And in the process, we actually looked at every protocol that was emerging in the world. And it was confusing, right? Because there were many different ideas emerging both in the local industry, the documentary community, the county, the city. And so we looked at every document that was floating around, and we tried to extract what we thought would work for our students. So it was a very involved, long process, a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth with students. But we think we have a solid solution, and our students seem to be able to move forward with the productions.
You guys are really kind of ahead of the curve on this. I'm curious if people have reached out to you asking for help in developing their own processes.
Yeah, actually, I've been contacted by faculty in a number of other programs, universities and programs, to understand how is that we've been able to do things like Owen's project. And of course, we're happy to share, but I do believe that we are pioneers not only in Los Angeles, but countrywide in terms of the level of flexibility that we've been able to give our students and still prioritizing safety. Again, we do believe that any line of transmission is an unforgivable potential tragedy. So that's number one. And yet at the same time, we believe that there's a way to be creative and make films during the pandemic. And yeah, I'm happy to say we're pioneers right now.
I think we have time for one more question. It's another anonymous attendee. Was there ever a time when the production was in danger of shutting down, where CORE threatened to close you down?
No. Like I said, the movie about the project would be pretty boring. It would just be a bunch of people like waking up and going to work and going to bed. I mean, it might be fun. We had fun up there, but you know, the things that would make it shut down, which is someone leaving the bubble, you know, bad results on the temperature and symptom checks. Those things didn't happen. Everyone was very on board with all the stuff. There was no one really wanted to break the rules, right? Because everyone was invested in the project's success. I'll also just say that to answer your last question, you know, no one has really contacted me yet about throwing around ideas about their projects or whatever. But you know, if you want to, you can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's available on the social media channels,
yeah.
but I think a lot of people would be fascinated to talk about this. But with that, our session has come to an end. I want to thank you all so much for your questions. I want to thank our speakers again tonight for this eye-opening conversation. And to our Zoom audience, thank you once again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. UCLA TFT extends its best wishes for you and your loved ones to remain safe and healthy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.